IVM.
We just finished an influencer shoot last month for one of our brands, and the fee that we paid the influencer matches what we would have paid an A-grade celebrity. Is influencer marketing coming of age in India? And if yes, what are the do's and don'ts here? Like in the case of celebrities, you take one and you can cover a large part of the country. How do influencers work for a brand? What are the advantages of enumerating micro-influencers for your brand versus one mega celebrity? Through apps like Josh, MX Takata, Chingari, many regional content creators have found their own base. The connection that these regional influencers have with the specific demographic is unmatchable. But is their reach enough for the brands to help them win the game? And finally, what makes an influencer? How do you play across multiple platforms? Do you select a niche? How do you stay continuously relevant? Welcome to Speak Easy with Dheeraj Sinha. And today I'm talking to Apaksh Gupta, founder at One Impression, a leading global influencer marketing platform with a network of over 14 million influencers. One Impression has worked with over 300 plus brands across 12 countries, ranging from Unilever, Nestle to startups such as Meesho, Mamaearth, and Unacademy. Apaksh, welcome to Speak Easy with Dheeraj Sinha.
Hey, Dheeraj. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, look forward to this conversation. So, Apaksh, diving straight into the conversation, we are from advertising and, we've all the time managed brands through celebrities and so on and so forth, right? And as the times change, there is such a mega shift towards influencers. And just about last week, we shot a film with an influencer, and we would have paid the influencer about the same amount of money that we would pay any A-lister celebrity for a day's shoot, right? So clearly there is needle shifting on this piece of celebrity versus influencers, right? How are you experiencing it from the side of running an organization which manages the whole influencer ecosystem? What are the things that you are seeing at this front?
So Dheeraj, I have a slightly different take at this entire piece. So the way I imagine it, that even celebrities are influencers. I think we're all influencers. The only question is the scale of an influence can be very different. Obviously, without social media, the only channel to be an influencer was either you be on TV or on a movie screen, or otherwise you were like an offline influencer, right? Like people knew you in your society, in areas that you lived in. Digital sort of social content creation, the way you could now just share your content and the way people are keen to sort of consume into that content changed that philosophy, which gave birth to this entire new set of people who were creating and people who were consuming and people who were loving that consumption. And hence the word influencer that sort of popped into the entire conversation. But at a very fundamental level, we are all content creators. Some create content offline in local circles. Some create content. Celebrities used to create content via TV or bigger screens. And then this entire new breed, which is creating content via social media today. I think the needle always had to shift here. It was just a question of time, really. But I think it's really about it's really the fact that anyone in the world today, wherever you live, you could have great content, which could be on any topic or your lifestyle or any sort of genre, right? And you could share it with a larger audience who could love that content or who could love you for being you. And then and for the very fundamental reason we love celebrities, we love these people now, and they create content in a different way. And brands want to be where people are, where the eyeballs are, and hence the money is now just money just has more options. Like I'd say, it's just decentralized from a set of 100 200 people to maybe 2-3 million options.
Yeah, no, I find this very interesting. You say everybody is a content creator, and and I want to therefore probe that a bit more. I mean, there's a huge democratization of influence, if you may say so, right? And especially during the pandemic, for example, everybody is. I mean, I have a couple of my batchmates. They are creating reels,
Correct.
right, and the entire family is creating reels, and they're mega hit, right. So
Correct.
all kinds of people, right, past 18 months sitting at home. Somebody started a YouTube channel on food. Somebody started being more prolific on LinkedIn, whatever they're calling might be, right. And there's also been a monetization aspect to it. I mean, young people sitting at home realize that there's power in creating content. It is monetizable. Their time can actually be turned into money, right.
Correct.
But how democratic or how long tail do you think this whole game is? Is it really that everybody can be influencer, or do you finally feel that this will become more and more professional with platforms such as Moj, etc., coming in and giving equipment, maybe setting up studios. Where is this long tail democratization story going?
Yeah, so very interesting question actually, and I talk about it a lot within my team, and I think people that I meet. So I think it's like any gold rush, right? Some people
Yeah,
discovered that there's gold here, which is like content creation is a new way of making money. I'd like to differentiate on one point that you mentioned, that people are converting time into money. I'd say people are. It's not time that they're converting into money. It's the scale. It's the scale of distribution they've built using social media, right? Like they could
yeah,
all be spending the same amount of time, but be earning more or less depending on the scale at which that distribution is now possible. Now the problem is obviously just like how, say, 10 years, if you just rewind 10 years from today, the startup ecosystem used to be very tough, right? Like for
yeah,
anyone to start a company, they had no incubators or venture capital or angels spending, putting so much money. So very few people, many started, but very few were able to really find their path to glory very soon, and it used to take much longer. Fast forward today, you are building billion-dollar companies in 6 months also. So
yeah,
so so the ecosystems really evolved, right? Where you could be
yeah,
similarly for a creator 3-4 years ago, becoming successful was difficult. People who figured out professional content creation, etc., built the right connections, they grew. But today, as a content creator, you could go to sort of glory in 3 months, 6 months also. Now, the
mm,
question is that the ecosystem has to obviously evolve further to accelerate it even further, which means that now, various companies are coming up saying, telling creators, hey, you guys don't know how to create content. I will teach you. Various
yeah,
companies are launching courses where large creators can teach upcoming creators, right? So people can learn from Ankur Wariku or
yeah,
somebody to learn how to be a great creator on topic A, B, and C. So the idea is that there's a whole ecosystem that is now building for this entire new breed of sort of creator entrepreneurs, what we call it, which is this
yeah.
new 3 million plus people in India alone who want to be successful and are figuring out various tools and resources to get to that success. And the ecosystem is now building for them, just like how the ecosystem is built for entrepreneurs like us today. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's where I see the story going.
yeah. So take us a bit at the backstage of this whole game, Apaksh. I mean, what are you guys doing, to build the whole supply of the ecosystem, and how do you choose? I mean, what are the top three or five factors on which you bet that this is going to become scale or this is not going to become scale?
Sure. So interesting that I just quickly introduce one impression a little bit just to bring context into the conversation.
Yeah,
So there are we're a marketplace. We're an influencer marketing marketplace. We have about 14 million content creators globally that we track on the system. There are about 2.8 million of those in India. This is largely spread across YouTube and Instagram today, which is about 2.5 million creators on Instagram and about 300 odd thousand creators on YouTube, which is again some of the largest size per scale of creators that anyone globally is tracking. I think so. Again, just to bring context, we work with creators both large and small. So we've transacted with the likes of Hardik Pandya, Twinkle Khanna, Kalki, Soha Ali Khan. Down to
yeah,
we've also worked with, like, say, in a single shot campaign with 10,000 micro nano creators in over 10 languages, including Tamil, Telugu, Punjabi, Bengali, Malayalam, so on and so forth.
yeah,
On the demand side, we work with about 300 odd brands, everyone from a Unilever, Nestle, Mamaearth, Plum Goodness, so edtech companies, fintech companies, etc. What we're now trying to do for the system is that both demand and supply sort of don't really know what to do. Every sort of supply wants to deliver and do a good job, but they don't know how to find consistent income, how to deliver well. demand brands, they want to spend money, get ROI, see predictability. They don't know how to sort of get
Yeah.
via influencers. So they're also putting money, hoping that they've gotten it right. But a lot of times they don't really know what to choose influencers with. So what we're trying to do is build an ecosystem for both. So our platform for brands helps them access a lot of data. So data points like, so obviously followers engagement rate is a very fundamental metric. It's like it's like hygiene checks rather than metrics that you decide on. But metrics that you decide on are mostly like how consistent is the performance, which means that if an influencer has a high deviation, which means that on one content they're getting 100,000 views and the other a million, you don't want to work with that influencer because you don't know which side of the scale you're going to lie on. So you'd rather work with somebody who's getting consistently 400,000 views. Two, how great is the trust within the community? So we're trying to decode things like trust score, wherein say the influencer asks their community to take a small sort of test for them, and basis community feedback, we can decipher how strong does a community believe in the influencer, or how much community will actually spend money or take an action when the influencer asks. The idea being that we don't want a million followers who don't care. We want 100,000 followers who care, right? Because at the end of the day, ROI is not just reach and views and engagements. ROI is actual, bottom funnel action. Consideration, right? And I think the most important part that lacks in our system today is responsibility. And I sort of go into that, which means that when you transact with an influencer, and then you'd hear a lot of times that, some of the influencers, they've disappeared while on the day of the campaign, or they're not responding. Or similarly for brands, they don't pay sometimes on time. You hear so many problems on them. So somebody needs to bring responsibility for both the parties, which means that every time you work with an influencer, if you could start rating that experience, if you could start rating how the ROI was, how professional the influencer was, how easy it was or difficult it was. Now, when there are 10, 20, 30 transactions with an influencer, that data will mature, right? It's like a Zomato rating. You trust that 400 people say that this restaurant's 4.2, so you want to order there because you trust. But today that data is not getting collected, and hence there's no responsibility. So we're trying to put it all together and bring responsibility for both advertisers and the influencers, saying that if you are responsible, if you do a good job, more people will want to come to you. If your community trusts you, more people will want to spend on you. If you're irresponsible, if you're careless, if you don't, deliver what's very responsibly sort of required, both from brands, both from your community, then obviously lesser the data is getting collected and lesser people would want to engage with you. So I think we're solving for the problems of scale. We're solving for the problems of responsibility. We're solving from the problem of predictability.
Yeah, amazing. So it certainly makes the whole platform look much more professional and much more, outcome guaranteed, if I may say so.
Correct.
To be able to deal with.
Correct.
Another aspect, Apaksh, which is fascinating for me as well, and one of the big shifts in marketing today is that, say about a decade ago, we would do national level thinking, right? So there'll be a India strategy, or and then revert it down to India copy, India campaign, so on and so forth, and then you would translate it into local languages, right? Now that is shifting dramatically. So for a lot of clients, say on PNG, PhonePe, Spotify, we are creating work which is region up. So we're saying, how do we help PhonePe win for gold in Andhra Pradesh? How do we help Spotify win in Tamil Nadu? How do we, help PNG win in some of the other markets? And the whole influencer setup there is becoming very, very useful and handy. How do you see that developing? Is the influencer network in the region, is that developing hugely? Is there a good amount of flow and followership from tier 2, tier 3 regionals? How do you see the influencer game helping us do the regional marketing a bit better?
Yes, so Dheeraj, very interesting question. I think one of the things that helped us grow as a company and that I've seen works very, very well for brands today is the ability to go into regional first or regional fast, which means that, until a time ago, a regional strategy was a very difficult or a painful one, both from the ability to create content and then the ability to distribute content. And the ability to create and distribute parallelly at many regions for various different products was a very, very complicated problem. So you'd have large teams and agencies just figuring out how to get it all, put it all together for months. Versus today, you could launch a brand, or you already have a brand which has 10 different products, all famous across 10 different states. And you could very, very quickly create and disseminate that content via various regional trusted people, almost like in a time matter of days or weeks, right? Like, which has been made possible by regional content creators. So I think regional has definitely helped the entire sort of ecosystem grow. I'd say about 50% of our revenue goes into regional creators. So
Wow.
it's a huge revenue that we see being consumed. And I think going further, I'd not be surprised if that percentage gets larger towards regional as compared to say tier one cities. Because even when we talk to a lot of D2C brands or newer companies, they tell us how they have a large audience base coming out of tier two, three, and four cities. The other trend that's also pushing it further is the fact that there are all these newer Indian platforms, right? All from a Moj to a Josh to a
Yeah.
Chingari, who are again pushing with all the money that they have regional content creation and consumption, which means that there is even more depth that's being created in the regional space. So huge, I think, huge space for brands to leverage one, huge space for creators to be born and to sort of grow there. I think the only gap today is for a content creator to be able to find tools and resources, which you mentioned earlier in your last
Yeah.
question, to grow faster, to become more professional, to understand how to create great content. And I think that companies like us, and then there are so many various tools and companies coming up who are essentially trying to solve the problem where content creators can become great at what they do much faster.
So, how professionalized is the system getting in that term? I mean, do a lot of influencers now have, say, a team, entourage, tools, etc., or are most of them lone warriors sitting in front of a screen? How's that shaping up?
So definitely by in sheer numbers, it's definitely lone warriors. But of course, the trend is moving fast towards creators being able to hire teams now. So I think it's a certain scale. When they reach that scale is when they're able to hire a team because they have some predictability of contracts from brands, etc. income that they can now think about, really hiring a team. Until then, most of them are working as sort of all-in-one kind of teams. But again, companies like us are trying to take initiative. So we're launching something called One Star. The idea of that
Hmm.
initiative is to launch courses and tools for content creators, wherein they can take, say, a course from say Instagram itself, or creators who become larger on Instagram, wherein all of the people come together from the community to train them on how to create a great reel. So the course is called How to Become a Reel Star. Right.
Wow.
Similarly, we can continue to launch how to create YouTube videos, how to
Yeah.
become great at podcasts, different skills, right? And then you need equipment. Hey, here is the equipment, here is the price. You can get the best equipment at best prices. The idea is all of this is scattered today. There is information, but it's
Yeah.
really scattered. So to be able to access tools and information seamlessly is difficult. And people who figure it out obviously grow. People who don't keep on,
Yeah.
sort of just spending time figuring it out. So somebody who can put it all together will really help this entire sort of ecosystem for content creators to become a professional content creator.
Yeah. I want to discuss a bit, Apaksh, on the timeline, time access, how this, so the perishability, for example, right? I mean, the classical celebrities you spoke about, right? Say Bollywood or cricket. I mean, they had a decent timeline. Say Bollywood have, say, a
Correct.
5-year timeline. Maybe cricket would have a 3-year timeline or maybe 5-year timeline, right? So one is the timeline of the celebrities or influencers. I mean, how long would they last? I mean, it's still beginning, but would they just come like a blip and go away, or would they be able to sustain? Also, because classically, most of these content creators, they came from some other domain and became influencers, right? So you played cricket and that was your core, and you became an influencer, or you did cinema and that was your core and you became an influencer. But here, those boundaries are a little blurred, right? You're creating content every day just to float up. So do you feel that there'll be creators who will emerge and they will stay on in people's minds and consideration for decent amount of time? That's one. Second is, the question number second is that when you sign on a celebrity, right? I mean, there have been cases where brands have worked with celebrities for 4 years, 5 years at a stretch, right? I mean, say Pepsi or Lay's or any of those brands earlier on. But with influencers, it's more, say, one-time use, more often than not. Or at least that's what very few brands are locking, or at least that's what I feel, influencers for a long-term contract. So both from an influencer's perspective, how do you see the perishability? And from a brand engagement perspective, how do you see this shape up? Would it become more long-term contracts, or would still be, okay, I want this quick campaign, let's get 16 people to do something and get out?
Yes, so I think I'll answer the second question first and the first question later. So the fact today is that there are an extremely large number of brands that are diving into 3 months to 1 year contracts with creators.
Sure.
So a year ago, it used to be the norm that most of the engagements were one-off. But then brands realized and creators realized that it is not a great partnership because brands don't have predictability, creators don't have predictability, and both don't really have a partnership. Both are just sort of doing a handshake once and then just not sure what's going to happen again. Today, brands want predictability because they have a large amount of money that they want to spend on the channel and get an outcome. So they realize that, hey, if I work with a creator 1 year, 6 months, one, I get a better price. Two, I get a predictability that as a creator grows, I continue to grow with their audience. And two, like the trust between the brand and the creator's audience deepens a lot better than, in a one-off engagement. So I mostly see very few brands today. So the way it works is more like the one-off engagement is like an angel investment in a creator. It's like they see what the creator can do. And if that angel works, they sort of go with the Series A investment, right? Wherein they'll say, hey, let's lock you in for 3 months. If that works, they'll go with a Series B investment saying, hey, let's lock you in for a year. For some larger creators, they'll say, hey, let's start locking you with a minimum of 3 months. If you work great for 3 months, we'll go for a year-long contract. So I think the fundamental idea that how celebrities used to get longer contracts has already reached, and that ecosystem is evolving today to longer contracts. It has come to a point that brands who are not locking creators, they don't get access to those creators, mostly because the creator is already taken by somebody else's time.
Yeah, it's like the celebrity game. Yeah,
right. So I think that's happening at a very rapid rate, which brings me to the first sort of point that, this entire trend itself showcases how, brands are ready to bet on the longevity of a creator and say that, hey, this person's here to sort of stay for long. So I'm ready to put 1, 2, 3 CR or whatever amounts on this content creator itself and sort of grow with the creator, and sometimes tens of them. So I think content creators are here to stay. The question will always be that are creators able to evolve themselves with the rapidly changing trends? Because in social media, it doesn't take a very long time for the way of content creation to change and the way of content consumption to change. So I'd not be surprised if 2-3 years later, Oculus is the default way of consuming content and VR is the default way of creating. I'm just saying that the timeline could be 5 years also, right? But you don't know. And how fast it happens, it happens in a blip, right? So somebody who's quickly able to change with the trend will, typically take their audience along and grow. Somebody who's fizzled out in the trend will obviously fizzle out as a creator, and new creators who will then hop onto that trend will sort of emerge.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. We'll take a quick break, Apaksh, and come back and continue this conversation. A short break and back. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks to Garima Pandey. She is the co-founder of Wandering Jane. They discuss solo travel and how it's perceived. Does the story of a fake lawyer on the run sound interesting to you? Then definitely tune into Misconduct. Raghavi and Nisha discuss the story of Ceci Xavier. On KBCD, Farhad and Sunitru discuss how sometimes people don't feel inclined towards sex, some possible causes, and how it's okay to feel so occasionally. On Press Decode, Sarah and Prafula are joined by author and journalist Sandeep Roy. They discuss the no stags policy that many bars and restaurants follow across the country. Do check out Hanswani, the story Tirthan talks to us about the aspiration and challenges of widowed women. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, do remember, go check out our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, to get a list of all of our YouTube channels. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, HDFC Mutual Fund, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back, Apaksh.
Hey, Dheeraj.
So I was curious to hear from you a couple of examples of, successes you've managed to create with influencers and content marketing.
Yes, so I think there are of course many who come to my mind when I think about influencers who we started working with when they're literally just starting out their journeys, and today they've become fairly famous in the market. So many come to my mind. One of them, of course, would be a dear friend of mine, Raj.
Yeah.
So Raj, what literally started, I met him when he was at what 50,000 odd followers. Raj
Mm.
Shamani. He's now a million plus followers in just audience terms, but I also see him working with some of the most beautiful brands, having long-term deals, having a huge community that trusts him. So I think it's a huge success story that I've seen literally sort of born in front of my eyes and then become like a success in India, wherein every large brand wants to work with him. Similarly,
And
sorry,
what do you think? What do you think worked in this case? I mean, what's the success recipe?
so in fact, I was having this chat. I was like, what have you figured out that's making you grow this fast? I think two things that he figured very beautifully. One is the fact that Reels was a new way of content creation, and Reels had just been launched then. And he just
Mm.
figured that Reels were getting innate virality on content that he was creating. So he created a lot of Reels. Two, he created his own trademark style of content creation. So he did something called three things you should know. Everything, three things, three types,
Mm.
three, something three, right? So he'd quickly use 30 seconds, 10 seconds to address each of those three things. And people loved that content consumption
Mm.
format. So backed by Reels and those three things as a format, he grew tremendously, right? And similarly, I see creators today. So one of my in fact, there's this creator that I absolutely love. Like I follow him a lot. There's this guy called Finance with Sharon. I don't know if a bunch of you
No,
followed
I
him or
haven't.
seen him.
Yeah.
You should check him out. He's like
Yeah.
the coolest content creator I've come across in a long time. He talks finance in all the Batman ways and Robin ways and all the coolest ways that
Amazing.
you could imagine. So he brings movie, fiction, and finance together in a way that you'd want to love finance. It makes it so
Yeah.
much fun. And I keep sending my family things on, hey, did you know that you could invest in Nifty like this? And he does like all cool
Amazing.
stuff on
Yeah.
that side. So yeah, so I think there are a lot of these creators. There's somebody called Anupriya Kapoor. She's a mother, right? She started as a content creator. She tells me that she's again a good friend. She's become fairly independent, successful today. Sort of one of the biggest successful names in at least Tri City and even in India in terms of in the category, right? Like with
Yeah.
whom every brand wants to work. Huge community that trusts her. Started very very small, right in front of us. We've done so much work with us and one of the biggest names today in the category. So yeah, so I think
Amazing.
many stories like these that are
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
place.
So that again segues me to the next question, Paksh. So, see, and I keep going back to the celebrity game because that's a good reference point. We all understand, right?
Correct.
I mean, so when you looked at celebrities, you looked at Bollywood or you looked at, say, cricket, right? There were people who had pan category appeal. I mean, say Amitabh Bachchan. I mean, you can take him to any category, right? From
Correct.
paints to cars to finance to so on. And similarly, cricketers, for example, traveled across categories. The influencer game right now, however, is more locked to certain categories or cohorts. So you have
Correct.
beauty influencers, or as you said, there you
Correct.
have finance influencers, or you have say,
Correct.
has got an appeal with say Gen Z or so on and so forth, or say mothers,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
How do you think is that going to shape? Is this continue to stay as specialized, or would you also see some what I call pan influencers float up? As would there be Amitabh Bachchans of influencers floating up the game and saying that this guy you can take him or her anywhere and they will deliver the magic? How is this going to shape up?
So I think, Dheeraj, in my sense, it's not going to be ever a mass appeal like an Amitabh Bachchan,
Hmm.
because that is exactly the antithesis of why influencers exist,
Yes.
which is that today you can really target communities, niche categories, people who are interested in a certain thing and which is certain topic, format, style, and then sort of and they like somebody for it, which is why that content creator becomes successful. You can definitely become the Amitabh Bachchan of a category, which is that within
Hmm.
fitness you can apply to anything fitness and not just like say yoga as a content creator, right? And many content creators who are smaller will only be relevant to yoga, might not be relevant to other things within fitness. But then there are these 3-4 people who might be like Amitabh Bachchan of fitness. But I don't think so that there are going to be influencers, at least in the short term, who are going to be the Amitabh Bachchan of everything and anything,
Hmm.
because that is exactly the antithesis of why a content creator exists, according to me. because a creator is now able to target a community as opposed to an Amitabh Bachchan who used to be the only person we looked up to as an entire nation,
Yeah.
because the pool, that the choice we had of was 50 people or 100 people. So he was
Yeah.
a trust brand everywhere. So you put anywhere you want to bring trust, you put him and you get trust.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying the whole specialization, the domain is the base and the core of the influence game, and it's going to
Correct.
stay that way, and that's really what defines
Correct.
this game.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you have nothing specially to offer, right? Not knowledge, not style,
Yeah.
not something funny. Like if there's nothing about you that differentiates you to a community, then there's no
Yeah.
reason for you to be a content creator or for people to be following you. So if you are successful, there is definitely a reason that makes you successful. And that reason now those people have not 50 choices, but 50,000 choices of content creators they have. So for you to really win their attention and time, you need to be a specialized folk in style, in something, right,
Yeah.
which you trade with them in lieu of their time.
Yeah. And tell me something about, are they also locked to platforms? I mean, is it that, Reels versus Insta versus Roposo versus Moj, are influencers getting locked to platforms, or are more highly indexed on certain platforms, or is it possible to travel across with ease?
So there are two parties into this picture here. So the platforms would love them to be locked to their platform for
Yeah.
obvious reasons, because the platform wants to own the entire time that a user can spend, and hence the creator and the consumption. But creators, I'd say, until about TikTok didn't get banned, right? Like a lot of creators were fundamentally large on just one platform because they thought, hey, I'm very big on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, and it sort of works for me. But then when suddenly TikTok went out and a lot of these creators were like, hey, like what just happened to my audience instantly?
Yeah.
A lot of them, developed alternate platforms they had to be on. And that's what sort of gave rise to this entire conversation on, hey, we can't really depend on a single platform. We can't put all our eggs in one basket. We
Mm.
need to diversify. So let's start on a single platform, build to a minimum point, and then when we think we have the time, resources, and the ecosystem, let's take part of this ecosystem and start creating alternate content on platform BCD, whichever that I resonate with more. So you'd see,
Mm.
all the influencers moving from an Instagram to a YouTube, or a YouTube to an Instagram,
Mm.
or an Instagram to a Spotify now in podcast type. So you'd see creators moving around a lot. And that's a great thing, because a creator now has de-risked themselves from one platform going bust.
So it's diversification of portfolio, like in finance.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's
Absolutely.
and even companies, right? Like we all have our multiple revenue streams, online,
Yeah.
offline, marketplaces.
Yeah.
It's just diversifying your chances of going bust at any point of time. Plus, I think even as audiences, some audience, even like for me, like I love consuming content in audio. So I am not a
Yeah.
big fan of long form videos on YouTube. So I love audio. So whenever I'm on the move between flights, moving around, I'll listen to a podcast. So for me,
Yeah.
the same creator on podcast could be better than the same creator on maybe YouTube.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The role of platforms is changing as well, and
Correct.
that's happening. And you're right. Let's talk about the piece you did with Khabi and Dream 11. Right? It was all over everywhere. I mean, people saw it, and a big success. What I want to understand here is that, I mean, sometimes is it that in this new world where attention is everything, right? And
Correct.
classically in marketing, you thought so much that this is the right person, right fit, what will happen, so on and so forth. I mean, do you realize that sometimes it's important not to overthink and just do it? I mean, so was it just a shot at attention and you went at it like that, or was it well thought through? And is there learning there for brands to say that sometimes try something, I mean, and just it just works?
So I think a lot of brands, in fact, ask me this question, that should we start working with influencers internationally or not, right? Like, or
Yeah.
should we take like a punt with somebody completely unthought of? I think it
Yeah.
comes down to a few fundamental things. I always tell brands that at the end of the day, a business is all finance, right? There is incoming money, outgoing money,
Yeah.
profitability, loss. So you need to. So I think the first thing is you need to look at whether you have the money to take a risk. If you're in the early stages of with very little money to make sure
Yeah.
that you have to find a channel of growth, then I wouldn't be taking punts like this. I'll go with the easiest method of
Yeah.
finding almost short success. But when I have a certain kind of money on the table that I can say if 20% of my experimental money amounts to $2 million there, because my entire budget is say 10, 20, 30, $40 million on influencers alone, then I'll start playing around with that 2 million and I'll say,
Yeah.
hey, let's go crazy with this one international influencer and pay $500,000 and see what happens. It's either going to go bust or it's either going to go great. But that's an experiment I can afford because I have already put my 80% of my marketing influencer budget into smart, short outcome driven channels, and I can afford to put 20% there. So I think, Dream 11 was obviously able to take this bet given the kind of scale of money that they're able to also invest. But I do see newer brands now that have reached a certain minimum scale and threshold trying to take different kind of experimental takes on influencers today. They say, hey, we have 10 crores that we can spend, which is
Yeah.
spare from all the money that we've already spent smartly. So now tell us ways to, spend this 5-10 crores in the most interesting ways possible. Either the outcome will be a bust, but we're okay about it, or the outcome will be bigger than what 90% of the money was able to do.
Yeah.
So we're ready to take that punt.
Yeah, and I think this is only going to go up because most brands are realizing that attention is perhaps the biggest currency in today's times, right?
Correct.
And you have to
Correct.
take risks for attention. I mean,
Correct.
you keep
Correct.
on doing the safe stuff, and you will keep on getting the safe return, or sometimes not get the safe return as well, because
Correct.
with safety, the diminishing marginal utility of return will set in. So my sense is
I think
that
safety is the most risky thing right now.
It's the most risky thing.
It's the most risky. I think if you're safe, you're the riskiest right now, because the only safe place, according to me today, is the ability to take risks. Of course, the risks have to be smart, calculated, and mature, and maybe divided across channels. But risk is the only method of growth today. I don't see a single company or person who's going safe and doing great. I just don't know of anyone.
No, I agree with you. You have to take your chances. That's the market that it is today.
Correct.
That with celebrities, right? I mean, we're seeing what's going on with celebrities at this point in time all across. I mean, they're in controversy, things are happening, and so on and so forth. How do you mitigate or how do you account for risks of that sort, right? Because, I mean, you have to ban your content, sometimes can go out of hand. So I'd like to hear from you, what is the thinking that's going on at the influencer level in terms of how to mitigate risks and how to mitigate, say, somebody landing in pure controversy and brand being at the brunt edge of it?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think Dheeraj, again, while there is no way today possible to predict a controversy, right? So since you don't know when it's going to arise or with whom it's going to happen, right? I think the only I have a very different sort of personal take at it, which I obviously preach to everyone. I think the first part today is, of course, the reason influencers exist is that you can de-risk it by not having just a single sort of face to your brand, but having, say, a set of faces to your brand, which is why brands go into, say, long-term deals with 10 influencers today, all advocating the brand as opposed to like a single celebrity endorsing the brand, which used to be the norm, say, 5-10 years ago, right? I think it automatically de-risks you as a brand by just having a single sort of face, be everything, a single brand. Yeah. I think that's part one. But part two is, I think the only way is to tone down the content, like maybe push your content lower when there is an ongoing controversy. But I don't think so that you should run away from the partnership with a content creator during a controversy if you're already in it for a while. Because I think as humans we all go through different phases. So creators are just set of humans again. They can have good and bad times. And as a brand, the partnership will only grow with their audience and with the creator when you sort of stick to them for long. If you sort of bail out the moment there's the minimal amount of risk, I think as a brand it does. I think people today have the ability to see through, and it doesn't fly in the best way possible. The only other obviously risk mitigation strategy is to say that just don't put all your money on a single face. Let's just have a set of faces and continue to increase those set of faces as you have more capital to invest.
Yeah, so diversifying your risk again here. Yeah, very interesting. And you think it's all about partnership, right? I mean, if you run away from the partnership, that will also be visible to your audiences.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Apart, let's talk about your story, right? Let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. What have you been through? And as we talk a lot of entrepreneurs, and everybody tells us that everybody sees that one part of success, right? Everybody sees the unicorn day or everybody sees the IPO day, but you don't see the other 364 days of pain and toil that goes behind it. So talk to us about your journey. How did you get here? What were the successes? What were the failures?
So, so Dheeraj, mine was a slightly unique journey in that I'd say in contrast to most entrepreneurs. For one single reason that most of them have taken a leap from a comfort space to a high risk sort of space, which is a startup. For me, I think entrepreneurship was the default, right? So I think I jumped right after college back in 2014 into my first venture. Like 3 days after college, I was already putting my family's money into like my first venture, which was like a cafe with two friends of mine. We did fairly fine. We took an exit about a year later, made decent money, but again
Yeah.
realized that it's not going to make us $1 billion. So let's not just sort of put more time and energy here. But we learned some interesting business fundamentals. Then jumped on to starting my next gig, which was a design venture. Again, I think networking came sort of naturally to me. So I built a lot of my space just by a single connect to today, I think a few thousand people that I've known. So I just found my way through and sort of built, self-learned design, built an
Yeah.
agency, ran it for a while. And then I wanted to build out a product. Late 2017 is when sort of I was trying to do something in fashion because we were in fashion. We were trying to use influencers as a channel of growth. And we used to talk to different partners and we were like, this is crazy. I only have 1 crore rupees in funding. And one guy is asking me a lakh, the other is asking 5 lakhs for the same post. It's like 5% of my entire capital. How can, it's going crazy. So let's just try and figure it out. And when we went deeper, we realized that this is possibly going to be the next big thing, but nobody's watching right now. So this is a great time to enter before everybody jumps in and build sort of leverage and sort of some strength here. So in 2017, late is when we started. We've mostly been bootstrapped. Why I say mostly is we raised less than 20 lakhs in capital. Today we do more than 50 crores in revenue. So
Wow.
we've grown like from barely bootstrapped to a fairly decent sized company in India, which is about 12% market share in the influencer market segment. Again, we just got on board some of the biggest investors in the country. Some really good names were joining us, and we should maybe announce that soon.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been exciting. We're a team of about 80 odd people. We work with everyone, everyone large in the country now. So I think the biggest factor has been one. I came from a business family, so I was always told to start something. So it was never a second thought that I had. The question was, what do I build and how do I build? Which I learned along the way by sort of juggling through various things. So in that sense, I don't feel comfortable if I don't have something going wrong in the morning. I think the only way I keep telling people, right? We got this major acquisition offer by this company, 3-digit $1 million offer. So I think maybe less than 10 companies in India would have made that kind of an exit. But I was telling them the biggest problem is not money. It's the reason I don't want to take the offer is because I don't know what do I do when I get up in the morning. I need something to be going wrong. So I think that's what it's been. I think hopefully the next decade or two, I hope I want to stick to one impression itself because this is exciting. Creator space is just starting, and I can't even imagine the number of possibilities that are coming up. In fact, I started angel investing around last year, and I've done a bunch of angel investments in creator companies. So I think it's just beginning and very, very exciting times.
So what would you have to say to young people who want to become creators, who want to, who aspire to become influencers? What are the 2 or 3 things you'd ask them to focus on?
I think first, the time is now, which is most important. So I think there has never been a better time because the entire ecosystem is pushing its energy, time, and money to find you and make you a creator.
Yes.
So you don't really have to do a lot to be successful. You only have to start. That is sort of the first thing. I think the time is now. Second, find your format, which is whether you're great at audio. Like I'm not a great video guy personally, so I don't do lots of videos, but I am very comfortable in audio. So if I were to start, my ideal tendency would be to quickly move to Spotify and create content or do something audio. 3, I think so. Find your format. I think that's important. And 3, find your category. and sort of your niche, which is just figure out whether you're great in fashion or finance or whatever. And once you know that, then I think it's just a matter of, experiments and A/B testing while you get to that point of growth. It's not going to be day zero when you figure it out, just like entrepreneurs do. But I think if you start now, find the format, find the category, you don't need a fourth thing to sort of grow. Most of it will just come to you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think
You make it look so simple. Apash, this is a great conversation. Thank you so much. And this is a time when we reverse the mic. So we take a break and we come back and you get to ask me questions.
Come learn and experience the ABCDs of being queer with me, Shunetro,
and me, Farhad,
on our show Gay BCD.
The two of us take you through our stories and experiences of being gay men in the city of Mumbai and have candid
and sometimes downright scandalous
conversations about sexuality, gay culture, and everything in between.
Catch new episodes of Gay BCD every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get all your podcasts from.
I have a bunch of interesting questions for you, Dheeraj. Thanks for being on the other side of the table. So I think I'd start with first, right? I think you've been in the space for a very long time. I mean, we started very recently, 3-4 years now, but you've been around for far longer.
Yeah.
And I think I quote it very often that the predictability of future comes from looking far behind into the past. So further you can look into the past, the further you can predict the future, right? So I think you've looked into the past a lot deeper than obviously I have, or others have. So one, from your lens, what's your take on influencers as a channel? How long term do you see it? How repeatable, predictable? What do you think? Like, what's your 30-second take on influencers?
My sense is, and I quite agree with you, my sense is it will go more and more specialized, right? To the extent that, the expertise will become even more and more deeper, right?
Correct.
And that's one. And second, you will see a combination of influence and talent coming together. So tomorrow, if you're hiring, say, a film director, you will not only look at the ability of the film director, you'll also look at the influence of the film director. Right. So
Correct.
I have written 2 books and I might write my 3rd book. And I'm so sure when I got the contract for the first 2 books, what they were looking for was my designation and my experience. When we are looking at probably the contract for my 3rd book, they're looking at my influence. Right. So the combination of your domain expertise and your influence together will become the next big power. I feel the game will become more and more specialized, right? It will become more and more deep expertise game. So there'll be a long tail, obviously, which will be easy, and I don't want to call it shallow, but easy and quick. And there'll be a very strong deep tail, which will develop, which I feel is being developed. And I think this place will get more and more specialized is what my sense is.
Amazing. And I have one more question, Dheeraj, as a follow-up. I think, and this comes to me very often, so I want to hear it from your lens again, which is that, so influencer content is all about creativity, right? And there's always been a question around who controls creativity, whether the influencer or the brand, right? So how do you think about creativity from a stakeholder who controls, who sort of access to all these large brands and represents them? And how do you control creativity at scale via influencers? How do you think about creativity from the lens of Leo Burnett and from your personal lens?
On that count, we have to say that there's been a bit of an unlearning that marketers and agencies have had to go through. And I must say it's work in progress, right? I don't think we've gotten there, all of it. For example, if you look at the name of a designation of saying brand manager, right? It's an oxymoron because today you cannot manage your brand, right? People manage your brand, right? So because all of these models, frameworks, designations are of a bygone era, right? They're about 3 decades old, where TV was the only medium. You controlled everything about the brand. You put out the message. You were in tight control, right? In today's times, your audiences are building the brand. You're not building the brand. They're building the brand, piecing together several scraps of stimuli that you're sending out through broadcast, through influence, through social media, through packaging, through distribution, through ads, and so on and so forth, right? So the the managers, so-called managers, are learning to let go a bit, right? I think it's still an exercise which is ongoing. It's
In
not
progress.
fully
Yeah.
gone. But we feel that results are always better when you are easy and you're letting go. Results are always safer and not so good when you have tight control. Right, so it's
Great,
it's
great.
it's inversely proportional to control in today's time, and it's not just about influence; it's about everything else. It's about the storytelling on TV as well, right? How entertaining are you? How much are you talking about me than talking about yourself, right?
Correct.
So I would
Correct.
say it's a bit of a work in progress, but and now we look at brand more as a narrative rather than a central core idea, right? Classical definition of brand thinking has been that what's the central idea of the brand? Tell me one word which drives the brand. I think all of that is very television era thinking, right?
Correct.
Today, when we are
Correct.
building a brand, we think that's the narrative of the brand, right? This is what the brand is about. So you have to define it in boundaries which are fluid enough so that many people can easily embrace it and work around it.
So would you say, Dheeraj, in another word, that a brand today is always fluid by default and not really like the narrative itself is fluid and not really a stagnant narrative that you build today as a brand
Yes,
and you stick with for 50
absolutely.
years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at how, for example, let me give you examples. The way we built, say, Amazon in India, right? We never had one strap line. So we started with this whole idea of aur dikhao. We wanted to own selection, saying that all that you get at your neighborhood retailer and more at Amazon, because the first reason why anybody would come to us. And we did this whole idea of aur dikhao. We then moved on to apni dukaan. We said, listen, it's as good as your neighborhood store. Then we moved on to,
Correct.
sub Amazon wale. We kept moving. Now, we were very clear the idea of the brand is about access. It gives all of India access to things that they may not have. And the idea of brand is about upgrade, right? Within
Correct.
that narrative, we kept moving. Right. Similarly,
Correct.
say with Spotify, we launched this whole idea of there's a playlist for that, and a very data-based campaign. Then we brought in Anil Kapoor and Ishan Khattar to do Sunte Ja, and we just did a campaign with Deepika Padukone on educating on how to use Spotify. So we know the narrative of the brand is the same, but the campaigns is very, very fluid. And there's not one single line that you're building. You're building the brand as a narrative, but you keep moving and you're fluid.
Evolving
That's
the
the only way
narrative.
to build today. Yes, that's the only way to build today.
No, amazing. I think I fully agree. And I think people who sort of, according to me, figured it out are the ones who are progressing because the narrative can't sort of be the same or stick around for a long time. I've one more question, Dheeraj. Like I have a couple more, but the next one's again a little different one. So I think you're again at the at the top of the pyramid for a large organization which has so many new people come in, out, learn,
Yeah.
grow at different stages of their careers, right? And then there is this whole ecosystem around you which is constantly moving so fast that it's so difficult to even keep pace yourself, let alone the entire organization sort of keep pace with it, right? So how do you what's your biggest challenge as a leader there, right, to keep the organization moving fast enough, agile enough that it's moving with the trends and growing with the trends and sort of just like from your sort of mindset, what is that challenge that you think about every morning that hey, this is something that's been poking me and I want to solve it, and
Yeah.
or something that keeps you on your toes
Yeah.
most of the time?
Yeah. I mean, my biggest worry and my biggest worry every day is that I hope we don't lose our restlessness. My biggest, and we saw the India Pakistan match, and everybody can have their own opinion, but I was just wanting to see the hunger,
Sure.
right? And that's exactly how I see of my team, right? If we are hungry and if we are restless, right, we will win. The day we lose that restlessness, the way we lose that hunger, is the day we die. And therefore,
Correct.
we bet very, very highly on young people. Right, we have a very flat hierarchy. We have no cabins in our office. Everybody is accessible. So we've worked really, really consciously, very hard on keeping things very flat, keeping things very fluid and agile. There are no territories. I mean, whether in Bombay, Bangalore, any city, you are one Leo Burnett. So we've created these pillars of culture to build this culture of restlessness, is what I would say.
Amazing. No, I think I have many cues to take from you, and maybe I'd reach out to you sometime again because I think as we grow as an organization, I think the question on which problems to solve and then how
Yes.
to solve them keeps you. I think you need to pick your problems smartly and then solve them smartly. I think that is possibly the biggest challenge, and especially at a scale which is and in a system where like every month you have something completely changing. So the way brands think, the way creators think, everything is moving so fast that it's very important to keep pace, and then the whole organization to keep that pace. But I think lots to learn from me. Another question, Dheeraj. So given that we've spoken about influencers today, do you have any personal favorites there? Like, do you follow somebody? Do you love somebody? Do you love our content? Any personal favorites there?
See, I have there are lots of people I follow on podcasts, etc. So Adam Morgan, Sean Parr. So I'm a big podcast person, right? So a lot of learning there. But off late, I'm fascinated about, Bhavesh Agarwal from Ola and the way he turned himself into an influencer for the launch of the Ola Electric. I think that's a fascinating case to my mind.
Yeah. Do you think CEOs today need to become influencers as well?
I think definitely in the startup world, you can bet that Apple wouldn't be Apple without Steve Jobs, right? Tesla wouldn't be Tesla without Elon Musk. I would say Ola wouldn't be Ola without Bhavesh, and so on and so forth, right? Paytm, you can name some of these. And I do feel that most of these brands and these cultures are built around the culture of people who run it. And there's an asset there available to play. Why would you not do it?
Absolutely. So, Dheeraj, my last question is: if you could switch jobs with somebody today, what would it be? If you would almost be restarting your career today, what would it be?
I don't know. Maybe Elon Musk's job. I would love to know how does it feel to name your child X #@563 or something like that.
Yeah, I bet I really think about it sometimes. Like, it's an alternate reality. I think folks there are living in, because what logic drives them to be able to come up with that name? And I'm sure the child will ask that question as he grows up. So we'll find an answer there. Great, Dheeraj.
Superb.
Thanks. I think that's all the questions that I had for you.
Absolutely. Great chatting with you, Apaksh. And let's catch up soon.
Yes, thank you, Dheeraj. Thanks for your time today, and lovely chatting with you.
Superb. Apaksh, can you tell people who are listening to us, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so again, I'm super accessible on my LinkedIn. I'm fairly responsive there. I almost read all of my LinkedIn messages every 2 to 3 days and make sure I respond to them personally. I'm also fairly accessible via emails, but I think I still prefer LinkedIn because it also gives me a context of the background of the person itself. So I'm always very curious to look into who's reaching out and what could be potentially a reason for them to reach out. So LinkedIn is the best way, followed by, I think, emails. And I'm at Apaksh, apaksh@oneimpression.io. Fairly simple. So either of those work for me.
Superb. At a fundamental level, we are all content creators. That's what Apaksh tells us. What differentiates the influencer is the scale of his or her influence. Apaksh talks about how the entire ecosystem, including the new apps in the Indian market, are investing in content creation and creators. All a creator needs to do is to find their specialization, a trademark style of creating content and a format. Creation is indeed the new way of making money today. In this game, change is the only constant. An influencer will have to be omnipresent and must adapt content for the respective channels and newer formats. It's the only way an influencer can ensure their influence continues to have an upward trend. Brand ambassadors getting in controversy is one of the biggest challenges that brands face today. Brands need to hedge their bets. One way to do this is by having several influencers. When one of them goes down, the rest of them can keep the brand going. Apaksh is also of the view that bailing out on your ambassador during a controversy is not the smartest thing to do for a marketer. Everyone makes mistakes, and we have to go through them together. Well, those were my learnings from today's conversation. What were yours?
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshit. खाने का इतिहास, इकोनॉमिक्स, पॉलिसी, साइकोलॉजी सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Nankali podcast every Wednesday, सिर्फ IVM podcast ऐप या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.
Habits, routines, How exactly do they help us get better? Well, to simplify it for you, tune in to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, and I'm going to be here to help you get better daily with some simple, easy to do habits that you can easily adapt to your life. So tune in to the Habit Coach podcast from Monday to Friday, because I believe that awesome lives start with awesome habits.